And now joining us for a discussion on the pedagogy of quality climate change is Dominique Vernier, Advisor for Education for a Sustainable Future, Quebec Labour Congress, Canada, Coon Timmers, educator, researcher, and founder of Project Cocoon, who is in Belgium, and Liz Magda Lopez, teacher and climate activist from Colombia. And joining us also is Juan Blas, who is a professor at the Autonomous University of Chiriquí in Panama. He was the one that put together the video, so I'm going to go ahead and start with him and switch to Spanish. Señor
Professor, how was the project born and what was the response of the community, the project that we saw in the video?
Profesor, ¿me oye?
Professor, can you hear me?
It looks like we've lost him, so we're having some connectivity issues with him down in Panama. So I'm going to go ahead and hope that he comes back. But in the meantime, let me go to Liz Magda. Usted está en una ciudad con
You live in
una
a city
inmensa
with a very big oil
refinería
refinery in Bermeja, Colombia.
Colombia.
So how do you talk about
esta realidad
these
con sus
issues with your
estudiantes?
students? Good morning to you all. First of all, on behalf of my trade union, I would like to thank you very much for inviting me to this event. My school is called El Castillo. It is located in Barranca, in Colombia, which is the place where the biggest oil refinery in Colombia is located. So what have we done in our schools? Well, when we teach science, we think that education goes beyond knowledge. We have transformed our pedagogies, and we have tried to become leaders that help promote debate and critical thinking in our students. Our students have learned to carry out research and to analyze the issues that our city is faced with. They've been able to debate and find solutions to our problems, to all these environmental problems that we are facing. In our school, this has been taught through the science and environment lessons. We're part of the project Action for Climate, and thanks to my colleague Contaimer, we have been able to cooperate and carry out different activities in our school. And they have had a fabulous response. I think that our school is really a role model. It is showcased as a model in terms of different initiatives that can be carried out. In 2019, we participated in a project where children presented an initiative which has become a standard. It was actually a very simple thing. What the children had to do was to carry out some research and identify the different problems faced by the education institutions. And we came to the conclusion that our main source of concern was waste. And what we did with the project was to convince children not to use throwaway glasses during the breaks, and so that they could take glasses that they could take back home after school.
Muy bien. Quería tener al profesor Juan Blas.
All right, I have Professor Juan Blas. I think that you're connected now, and thank you very much, Liz Magda, for your comments. First of all, how was your project born, the one we saw in the video? What was the response of your community? Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation, and greetings from Panama. It gives me a great pleasure to participate in this event. This project is the result of the interest of students at the Chile University. People I've been working with from 2014 up to now. And the conservation efforts arose, well, because students wanted all these turtle species to live on. So that was the source of the interest to start working. Playa de la Barqueta is the main nesting area in our region for turtles. So it's only natural for people to be interested in being interested in conserving these species. So this is the hands-on experience linked to the theoretical part that they learned at university. So we have very important human resources, our students, and we also made a very important alliance with a family which is a member of the community. So we forged a community academic partnership, and we managed to do a lot in very little time.
Coon, you've created a very impressive network of teachers from around the world engaged in issues of climate change. What are the elements of an engaging, progressive, and participatory curricula?
Well, within education, there's a huge discussion about the role of knowledge and skills, etc. And I think what is really crucial is that you target all of those important skills, creativity, collaboration, even on a global scale, critical thinking, which was already mentioned during the past discussion, I think, problem solving, and also empathy. And for doing that, we need a shift of pedagogy, basically. We need teachers who are able to shift to a different way of teaching. We already heard the past two speakers mentioning projects. So I think that project-based learning and student-centered learning is key in this thing. We have Tony Wagner, who did research about the huge gap between getting a degree and finding a job, and they all mention the same skills. So what I really think is that rather than students only knowing the definition about climate change and memorizing that definition, we also want students to come up with solutions, to take meaningful actions. And in essence, what we really need is that their mindset and their behavior starts to change. And that really, that really requires a different approach, basically, for which I think that teachers need to be trained, for which I think that the teacher needs to know how to activate the students as well, because in this student-centered approach, the teacher has to step outside that comfort zone. And for that, what we did is creating a huge network of teachers who are not only able to share their badge and their certificates and their accomplishments, but also their best practices about content, but also what it's not really working, so their concerns. And I think it's really important that the teachers have a good sense that they are being supported, guided, and that they are able to work with other teachers in a global network. And that is what we try to do with great outcomes, basically. We had students not only coming up with facts and sharing those facts and findings, leading to authentic learning, but we also had them coming up with mind-blowing solutions and actions. And through that network, they were able to inspire each other as well.
Great, thank you so much. Dominique, why do you think quality climate change education needs to be part of a pedagogy anchored in social justice and gender equality with decolonized curricula that is context specific, culturally relevant, and focused towards action?
Bonjour et merci.
Good afternoon, good morning. Well, since 1993, in our union, we have been focusing on environmental education based on the social justice. But with the years, we've realized that the staff, educators, teachers must have the time, the resources, and the required support from their management to be able to deliver quality work. Too often, governments will try to include, to add new subject matters into the curriculum, but it's just adding to what already exists, and then mean that the educators are overloaded, and that is very detrimental because that way they don't have the possibility to focus on quality environmental education or quality climate change education. We've also realized that the pedagogy has to be developed by the educators. We actually gather 1,500 school institutions in Quebec, and that organization, that association has been creating, deriving from the fact that teachers, educators have shown the will to educate students, children to the environment. And we have used the Paolo Freire pedagogy. It's a pedagogy that feeds hope. This is critical because with regard to climate change, science has shown that this is a critical challenge that could totally disturb the way of living of a future generation, and it could also be very detrimental for the survival of humanity. So it can, so young people can be very anxious, anguished about that. So we really need to teach how to feed hope, because if people are anxious, anguished, they are blocked, they cannot act, or they tend to be to adopt a denial behavior. And we don't want to look at this because actually that's very scary, and we feel we are not equipped to face that. So we really have to feed the capacities of the young people to take their future on board, to be responsible for their future and to act for their future. And we should not minimize the risk. We have to be clear. We have to be honest about the reality. And we need to trust the capacity of understanding of the young people that to whom we are teaching. And we also need to reinforce the critical thinking, as has been mentioned. There are a lot of climate skeptical people, so we need to make sure that the young people have the tools to face such people. And the good practices have to be shared between teachers, because if we wait for school manuals, handbooks with the right information, it will never be enough, because everything is changing so quickly. So the staff, educators, teachers should be gathered within a network, and this is precisely what we do in order to pool and share the best practices, the educational activities that develop in their own context with regard to climate change education. And eventually, we also have to walk the talk collectively. So it should not be locked in the classroom. It has to go beyond the classrooms, and in order for young people to have a positive impact on the environment.
Merci, thank you. I want to ask each panelist the same question. In just a few words, what do you think are the core components of quality climate change education? Voy a empezar con usted.
I'm going to start by the first speaker. What do you think are the core components of quality climate change education? I think that environmental education has to be flexible, it has to be sexy, interesting, and it also has to leave behind the concepts and theories and become much more practical, collaborative. Children have to learn together. They have to take action, to do activities, different activities which bring together maths and science and all the different subjects so that they can actually address the problems of climate change. Education has to be horizontal, but it also has to include all the different subjects and all the different areas of knowledge that we need them to develop so that they also become more creative. We need to think out of the box. We need to be innovative, to leave behind everything we have done until now so that the students can openly discuss and critically think about everything that is going on. Very good, brilliant. And I'm going to ask the same question to Professor Blas. Which are the core components, according to you, of a quality climate change education? Very, very briefly, because we have almost no time. I totally agree with Liz Magda with the idea that a school has to be an open place where children can speak freely, and it's also important to be able to put the ideas into practice. We need to make sure that all different students from the early years up to the university can actually make sure that they put into practice, that they actually touch with their own hands everything they're learning through the different subjects. Everything is interrelated. That's something we've mentioned before, but it's important to be able to see that.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask the same question to you, Coon. In just a few words, because we just have a few minutes left, what do you think is the core components of quality climate change education?
I think we need a good synergy between a teacher and the students. We need a teacher being a pedagogical engineer who has the right facts and background, but also knows how to bring this to the students. And we need young students being scientists, journalists, and activists at the center of their learning process, basically.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And the same question to you, Dominique, in real short words. What do you think are the core components of quality climate change education?
It's an education that nurtures the hope. It's an education developed by the educators themselves, and the best practices have to be shared.
Muchas gracias, merci.
Thank you, Professor Blas. Thank you, Liz Magda.
Juan Blas, Liz Magda, disculpe. Thank you, Coon and Dominique. This has been very interesting. Thank you for sharing with us and for the work that you do every day with our students. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much to everyone for participating in this session.
Gracias por la invitación.